exercise, the tutorial for InDesign today is to do a very simple animation like I showed you a minute ago, and also to create this tutorial, except I want you to put your own images in there. But basically what you're doing is creating an interface for an iPad or a screen in which when you click on these arrows, it will take you to the next image. And if you go and look at the layers are all divided. Here we are. There we are. Here we are. You can see how, what I was saying a minute ago, the image looks really pixelated. And the very first thing you want to do when the image is that pixelated, there is a chance that there's a broken link. But if you go down here and it says no error, you want to right mouse click, choose display performance, and choose, instead of typical display, high quality display. And you'll see that it gets a lot better if it's not a broken link, right? So be aware the InDesign shows you by default a low quality display. So it's just a display thing. The image is high quality, but just for the working process, while you're working in InDesign, it shows you a lesser quality. And the simple reason is because sometimes in InDesign you could have documents that have, 500 pages and 300 images. And if every image needed to be displayed at high quality, especially if it was for print and those images were high resolution, it would take a while to save or to do anything in InDesign. So basically InDesign finds a way to save on, to be more speedy, let's say, when you do any operation. But the way to be speedy for InDesign is to reduce the amount of quality of the image at the display level. Now notice that also it shows you here, these dots will highlight to show which image you're on. And it has separate slides right there with separate images of this beautiful island. So what we're going to do for this has a beautiful video that shows you how to do every step of this. But there's one part that is called creating multi-state objects that I want to do with you. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to kind of mimic more or less the size of this document. So let me go under File, Document Setup, and see how big it is. Is 841 by 595. So basically 850 by 600. Let's call it 1,000 by 700. Do it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to create a new document. And I make sure that I go with pixels, because I believe those were pixel, by the way. Maybe not, actually. Let me check. Let me do something on this document. In fact, let's go under InDesign Preferences Units and set it up to be pixels. Oh, it was points. Wow, that's interesting. I would not use points. Let's set it up to be pixels and say OK. So now when I go in my file document setup, it should tells me it's actually, oh, it is pixel. Sorry, it is pixel. That's the default. Okay, perfect. Just making sure that it's not some odd unit that I don't know. Okay, perfect. So here I said I was going to make it 1,000 pixels by, sure, oh, it turned it to 12,000 by, we said 800 maybe? I forget. I think 800. There we are. And I make sure that I don't have facing pages because we're just working for the screen. It's not a book. And that's kind of it. I don't need columns. I don't need margins. I mean, the margins actually are there by default, but they don't hurt me at all. So we're good. So what I want you to do is basically bring in the images that are provided in the exercises. And you remember how to bring images in InDesign. You go in and you do Command D. And you browse to that, let me find it, to that document that we just, there it is, File for InDesign Demos. Inside the gallery, there's something called Photos, and you can choose the photos you want. Actually, let's go with just the slide 1, 2, 3, and 4 because we know they're the same size. So we can say Open, and here we are. Oops, it's actually bigger than what it should be. Means whoever brought this in did not size it. So what we can do here is I'll show you a nice little trick if I can get it to show up. So if you don't have to worry about the projector, you'll see at a certain point. Oh. Here you should have something called auto, I forget what the name is because I don't worry about it generally. It's right there. Auto fit, perfect. So if you click auto fit, what it does is when you scale this image, it scales both the box and the image. Let me show you if I don't have auto fit selected. I uncheck that. I go and select this and scale it down, and it just cut out the image. It only scales the container. So have auto fit selected and scale it down. I'm going to scale it to be pretty small because I'm going to actually put little thumbnails underneath. I'm going to show you a different way to do it than what the tutorial does show you, and you decide which one you want to go with it. So here it is. So now what I need to do is bring in all the others and kind of make them be at the same size of this one, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go and say File, Place, or Command D, actually. Let's do Command D. That's way faster. And take the second slide, say Open. It's going to probably be the same problem, but now I know. I can zoom out. I can auto fit and scale it down to match the other one. Oops. And I'm going to move it to a different layer right here, layer 2. So I make sure that there are, no, one is bigger than the other, in fact. So I'm going to move layer 1 on top so that I can see layer 1 and layer 2 at the same time and scale it to be perfect. It doesn't really matter the order too much here, so, but now they're matching. I'm going to do the same thing for the third one, Command D. I'm going to take the third one and do the same exact process. I actually create a new layer. So it goes on the new layer that I can make go at the bottom. I drag it to the bottom, and then I make sure I turn on auto fit and do the same thing I did for the other one. Perfect. And as you can see, it's easy to scale them the same size. If that's awesome. All right, the last one, Command D, and the 4 is here. Let me create a new layer once again. So I separate them all in layers. Again, being organized, right? I'm going to put it at the bottom, and then I'm going to auto fit it and scale it down. Now, the best thing to do would be actually not to do this. You remember I have a video on how to prepare your files for InDesing. The best thing to do would be actually to have InDesing, you know that your document InDesing is 1000 by 800. You open all these files in Photoshop and scale it down. Now, we could still do it, right? If we go in links, you guys remember, maybe from last class, I hope you do, that you can go in links and select whatever you want to do. Let's say I want to scale this one down. You can select it, go under the options, and choose Edit Original or Edit With, and choose Photoshop, and then you can scale it down. I'm not doing it for the purpose of this presentation, but just be aware that you can scale it, you know, ideally before you import them is the best. But if you forgot, you can always go in and do it through the links palette. All right, so what I want to do is each of these, I want them to be thumbnails down here that activates viewing the bigger image on top. So what I obviously need to do is I need to take each of these. Let me go in layers right here. And this is layer 1, 2, and 3 are the bigger images. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go and select what's on layer 1 and say Command Copy. And then I'm going to go in layer 5 that I'm going to name Thumbnail 1. Because is layer 1 that is being, you know, seen in there. And I'm going to do Edit, Paste in Place would work. Then I'm going to move it down with my arrow keys. And I scale it to be the size of the thumbnail, right? So I'm going to make it nice and small right there. Even a little bit smaller. There we are. So what I'm doing basically is copying all my layers so that each has a thumbnail. And what is going to happen is I'll start with the first one, and then all the other ones I mouse over and will trigger this image to show up, right? A different image to show up every time. I'm trying to eyeball it if it's going to have 4 will work, or if I need it a little bit smaller, just out of being prudent. Since I did not do the math, we can make it a tiny bit smaller. Okay, so what I need to do is I can turn this off now. I'm going to go in layer 2. I'm going to create a new layer on top. I'm going to call it thumbnail 2, obviously. And then I'm going to select layer 2 by clicking on this little square, command copy, edit, paste and place. And then I'm going to move it down and shrink it. Now, how much do I shrink it? You want to kind of shrink it the same size of the other thumbnail, right? So what you might want to do is turn on, thumbnail 1. So now you can see how big it is. And then use, select thumbnail 2. And make sure, you move it down and you scale it down. And obviously you can move it to the side. We could use the align palette later to align them all properly, or eyeball it, either way. For the purpose of this demo, it's not a masterpiece, so it would be fine either way. So now we have this one done. I'm going to do the third one, layer 3. I'm going to do the same exact thing, command copy, create a new, call it thumbnail 3. Okay. And then I target thumbnail 3 and do edit, paste in place. And then I obviously move it. Let me turn on thumbnail 2 so I can see. What happened to thumbnail 2? Is in the wrong layer. Ouch. Yeah. Thumbnail 2 is on the wrong layer. We're going to move it up. Perfect. So now that I have thumbnail 2, I can activate thumbnail 3 and basically move it and scale it. So yeah, you kind of go in and do your preparation work. You'll see even in the tutorial that we have on Canvas, there's a whole lot of preparation work. Everything you do that is interactive, it requires some preparation. But you see, we're getting there. We could have made all of them a little bit bigger. I'll show you how we do all of them a little bit bigger all at once. So now what I need is, last one is layer 4. There it is. I'm going to create a new layer on top, call it thumbnail 4. And say OK. Command copy, edit, paste in place. And then I simply move it down here. Oops, I did a mistake. I thought, sorry, let me turn everything off and make sure that I do have a copy. Yeah, sorry. I need to select this guy and move this guy down. I was moving the wrong image by accident. And then again, we can zoom out and scale it down. All of these images, I know they already have auto fit. So it's pretty easy. Command 0 if you don't see what you're doing, obviously. Command 0, and I'm holding the shift key to make sure I don't deform the image. You know that part. Okay. So this is thumbnail 4. That needs to be on the other side. So if these ones are a little bit too small, you feel like, hey, look, I wanted them bigger. You can always select them all, and holding the shift key, you can scale them all a little bit bigger if you wanted to. And you can put them just underneath like that. We can obviously use the align palette and space them correctly, right? I think it's under window. Huh. Sorry, it's under arrange, or I'm used to align, but I think they have arrange now. Let me actually leave it for now because I don't know arrange as well. Sorry, I'm looking for align. Oh, it might be in the top here. There it is. Though align top edges. So I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna choose. I want to align to key object. Anyway, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it. This is actually the key object. Sorry. Anyway, let's not spend a lifetime on this. The idea is to show you how to do multi-state. But what you want to say is you want to align it to the key object, is that one. And then, yes?
It's window, and then object and layout, and then align.
I was looking for that. They move it on me all the time. Now, it's the same up here, though. This is actually should give you the same thing. You can see that, right? That they match. But thanks, Brandon. I really appreciate your help. You're coming to the rescue. To key object, and then I want to align it. Distribute horizontal centers. I always have to think about this one. Do you remember I told you one time that I'm a bit dyslexic? Sure enough. I always have to think about it. That is why I was kind of hesitant about going there. Oh, distribute. That's it. Oop. Nope. Okay, let's not do it to a key object. Instead, let's just take those 4. Or leave it alone, knowing that I have this little bit of dyslexia that doesn't make it easy on me. Yeah, perfect. So if you just go distribute spacing and click on this, it will distribute the spacing. I wanted to align it to the top, but let's leave it for now because I have to figure it out. And I don't want to. I want to worry more about doing the exercise. Okay, so now we have the 4 images on top and the little thumbnails at the bottom. We're good. So what you need to do is you need to take all the images on the top and make it into a multi-state object. So what you want to do is you want to click and drag. That means selects them all. And if you have any doubts, you can see it here. Right? Every square that is colored is an image, and sure enough is layer 1, 2, 3, and 4. That will be image 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you want to go under Window, Interactive, and Object States. Do you guys see that? Window, Interactive, Object States. And opens this neat little palette that if you click on the plus sign, will make those 4 images into one multi-state object. And I'll show you right now. You can see that multi-state object that I can call it Mykonos, since that's what we're looking at, has all my images in there. And I can even see them within the multi-state object. If any of you missed it, you select all the images, you go under Window, Interactive, Object, States right here, and then you click on the plus sign down here. So how do I make these into buttons that target the multi-state objects, right? So you remember we did in 182, we selected whatever you wanted to be a button, and you went under the buttons interface that is right here because I'm in the window, workspace, interactive PDF. That is why all my interactive stuff is on the right. So you want to go in the buttons right there, and you want to go in here and say button, and you want to call it, for example, thumbnail 1. And you want to, what do you want to do? You can choose the rollover state. Like you can say, look, I want a rollover that is actually 100%, less opacity. Sorry, I'm looking for this. 70% in opacity. I said 100%, I meant 70% in opacity. Sorry, I'm kind of juggling moving this stuff around. It's just because the projector kind of makes the interface a little bit crammed. It means you have to extend it a whole lot to get that auto fit to show up. And then what do you want to do in the actions? You want to click on the plus sign, and you want to say go to state. So you can say go to state, and it allows you to choose which state you want to go to. In my case, I want to go to state 1, right? There's the first image. And you can see when you open it up even what it is. So you make sure it's the right thing. There we are. So basically what you said is when you mouse over this one, when you click over this one, actually in this case, because we have on release, but you could choose on mouse over or on rollover. Let's do on rollover. Let's do on rollover. I like it better than having to click. So on rollover, I'm going to have to redo it because I just kind of chose a different, this thing writes in the background JavaScript. So before there was a line of code that said on release, and now is a new line of code, and that's why I need to re-specify that I want to go to go to state, and I want to specify that I want it to go to state 1. Perfect. All right, so I do the same thing with all of them. So I go in here, I create a button right here. I say I want a button, and I want to call it thumbnail 2. I like to name it. Some people don't care to name it, but I've always been kind of like that I want to. Oh, and you can obviously choose that the rollover is 70%, so you keep it kind of consistent. Go back to the normal, plus sign, go to state, and we want to go to state 2, obviously. And then you do pretty much the same thing for all of them and keep it simple. I go in here, buttons, button oops, thumbnail 3. I could leave this one to be just button 3, but on rollover, here I have the rollover state 70% opacity. Go back to normal, plus sign, go to state, and I want it to be state 3. There we are. And then the last one, last but not least, so yeah, once you have your files done correctly and your object state nice and tidy, it's really pretty much of a mechanical almost operation of going and selecting the right thing, right? So we're good. So let me say file say, actually, you know what I could do though? Just to make it a little bit better, maybe because I'm a designer, I'm gonna give it a background. Layer 9, I'm gonna call it background. Something as simple as a background, a rectangle. So let me try to, now that I don't need the auto fit anymore, try to shrink this one to be a little bit smaller so that I get to see my entire interface. You kind of remember I stretched it to get to see that auto fit that I needed. Oh, now is even too small. Anyway, there we are. If you hold the space bar, you can get the grabber hand. So I'm going to go and find a rectangle like this guy here and click and drag and give it a color, whatever color I want to. It can be black. Black is a little bit dark, especially with a gorgeous Greek island. We want something maybe more cheerful. Up to you, like a light blue, like the ocean blue. Whatever you want to put there. And up here, obviously, you can put text. You can do whatever you want. But let's preview it. You guys remember we have, if I go in buttons or anything, we have a preview option right here, what we were using earlier. Now, in the past, I taught you to, right now I'm mousing over and it works, as you can see. I taught you that you had to go onto multi-page to preview it, right? Last, in 182, we were dividing all the content across different pages. So the only way to see it was through this multi-page. In this case, it's all in one page. So you don't need to activate the multi-page. It's really a matter of hitting play and then go in and mouse over the various things. The preview doesn't show you anything that good. Oh, the last one doesn't seem to work. Uh-oh, I think the last one is on click. I must have messed up. Anyway, it does work. And sometimes another thing, remember, do not trust the preview very much, right? In fact, let me go and see if this last button is not actually, is still on rollover. Yeah, no, I did a mistake here. I did not, do you see? In the preview showed me that the last button was working only on click. So I said, oh, I bet I messed up. I did not put the rollover. Sure enough, I messed up. I did not put the rollover. So I'm going to do it again. Go to state, and I obviously want to go to state 4. Okay, at this point, it should be good. Now, another thing you can also remember you can do in InDesign is you see where it says hidden until triggered? You could actually create a little game in which there are a hidden element and the person kind of mousing over stuff discovers things that get revealed while they're mousing over it. You see this hidden until trigger is when you want to create effects like that. You're kind of basically the user discovers stuff by just mousing over, you know, your work, your interface. So I'm going to say save now. I'm going to call it test, or I don't know what to call it, but I think test will do. I'm going to put it on the desktop for the sake of it. Now, one thing that is very important, guys, is that you package it, right? Because right now this is good in my computer, but is a solo little file floating on the desktop. Let me show you. See this test? Never, 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 please think that you can take an InDesign file and give it to someone. Everything is going to be broken in it, right? You don't want that ever to happen. You want to do file package. Oh, before you do file package, make sure it says no errors down here. And if it says that there are errors, go in the pre-flight panel and it will tell you what the error is and exactly in which location even it is. Once that says no error, you can go in file package. Remember, this is something we did in 182, but it looks like a lifetime ago. And then I'll say, okay, everything is good. It says we have 12 links and they're all found and blah, blah, say package. and it will tell you, what do you want me to save? I generally do not include the PDF because I like to make my own PDFs, because oftentimes my PDFs are actually for interactivity. So the PDF for print doesn't really help me at all. But you definitely want to copy all the fonts, the link graphic, and update graphic links in package. I mean, if it's necessary, it doesn't hurt to have it there. I generally don't have it, but again, it just, if anything needs to be updated, it will update it. So then you hit package, and there it is. So now it created a folder below called test folder that has the same file, test, right here. By the way, this is a IDML, is a markup language file. You can actually uncheck it in the export if you want it, but it is kind of a nice backup if this one gets corrupted. That's why I don't uncheck it. But as you can see, it has links with the images. I did not use any font. If there was any font, there would be also a folder with the font. But now you could honestly throw this one away, because this one doesn't have the package, and always move things around within this nice little folder. So think of InDesign files as always having to move around in, almost like I always use this metaphor, like in a backpack with all the pieces in it. Otherwise you end up with a bunch of broken links. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you, is the concept of the multi-state objects. Let me actually stop the video.